This video briefly describes what is epigenetics, and I'm sure some of you are aware epigenetics is a new concept in the field of biology. So, it seems that people who buy into the concept of genetization and people who buy into the concept of epigenetics think from different angles. People who buy into the concept of genetization believe that genes forms the basis of our identities. And page 421 of this book explains epigenetics as the regulation of gene expression caused by environmental influences. And epigenetics are inherited. And the subsequent slides will show you how and why epigenetics can be inherited. And as you can see from the diagram below, our external environment, our social conditions affect our genetic makeups, and this in turn affects our health. So, in other words, our external social environment interacts with our genes through epigenetics. And epigenetics is a somewhat new concept in the field of biology. I'm sure some of you know that. So, interaction among the genotypes can lead to changes in the phenotype change. This in turn affects our health, and this can eventually affect our socio-economic statuses, be it income, education, occupation, wealth accumulation, and so on. And the diagram below explain how changes in the economic, social, and sometimes political context, like scarcity, famines, or any kinds of lifestyle changes, can lead to changes in our health statuses or outcomes in the long run, because all these changes in the economic and social context, whether it is famines or any scarcity or life changes, can change our human genome, and this can increase our risk for diabetes, hypertension, and obesity. So, our education level, our income level, our occupation, the type of job we are going to get, whether it's full-time, part-time, whether it comes with retirement and insurance or not, and other opportunities afforded to us. It is going to determine where we are going to live and the neighborhood we live in, directly and indirectly determines our support system, because the people we mingle with in that neighborhood can sometimes serve as our support system, and this can affect our stress hormones, how they function, and the level of our cortisols. So, if we live in a stressful neighborhood, high crime, not safe, polluted, this can increase our stress hormones and the cortisol level. This can in turn lead to cell loss in the hippocampus, and this will affect our metabolism and immune system. And this will eventually affect our ability to recall good memories, or we may also develop mental health issues like anxiety, depression, or even PTSD and other physical health problems. So, sometimes kids living in certain neighborhoods, if they need to take the bus or the subways and that neighborhood happens to be unsafe, imagine what they go through. And sometimes living in unstable home environments where there is abuse, mistreatment, or even incest and so on can also affect our stress hormones and cortisol levels. And this can also lead to cell loss in the hippocampus area. And this again will affect our metabolism and immune system. This can also lead to a loss in the bone minerals, and this can lead to our abilities to recall good memories. This can lead to a range of physical and mental health problems. And sometimes, if we have the presence of this cell, RS1696998 allele, sorry, I cannot pronounce that right, it can increase our susceptibility or dependence on nicotine or other substances, and this may increase our risk for lung cancer. And who is going to be aware of this? That the presence of this RS1696998 allele can lead to nicotine dependence. This depends on a person's education level, a person's income, a person's occupation status. And I'm sure you know, education, income, and occupation status are correlates among one another. And education, income, and career determines our level of health literacy. And this is going to determine whether we are aware of what this RS1696998 can do to us. So, this is one depiction of why epigenetics can be inherited. If the mother smoked during pregnancy, it can lead to heavier birth or overweight in the grandkid. It can pass on to the second subsequent generations. And who is going to be aware of this? It depends on the person's education, income, and career. All these factors, education, income, and occupation, determines where the person is going to live. And this determines who the person is going to mingle on a daily basis and what information, health-wise, the person is going to get. And this determines whether the person is going to be aware of the implications of smoking during pregnancy. So, this diagram implies that the contents of phenylalanine, sorry, I cannot pronounce that, in our diet can ultimately determine our risk for PKU. Sorry, I cannot pronounce that. So, if we consume a diet low in phenylalanine, you can Google what is phenylalanine, and this is going to break down amino acid for us, and we can avoid metabolism defect, and this in turn is going to lower our risk for PKU. And again, who is going to be aware of that? It all depends on the person's education, income, occupation, and other opportunities afforded to the person. Okay, if the mother smoked during pregnancy, it's going to affect the stability of the chromosomes residing in amniocytes, and this can in turn affect the lung and brain tissue of the infant. So, smoking during pregnancy may lead to lung and brain tissue damage in the baby. And who is going to be aware of this? Again, this depends on the person's education, income, career, and so on and so forth. And we all know by now, education, income, and occupation determines where we are going to live. This determines who we mingle with and our social support system. And this determines our health literacy. So, the presence of this chromosome 15q24-25 is going to correlate with a person's nicotine dependence, and this may ultimately determines a person's risk for lung cancer. And who is going to be aware of this? This depends on the person's education, income, occupation, and so on and so forth. Okay, this is what we mean by epigenetics can be inherited. So, if the mother smoked during pregnancy, and if this chromosome 15 is a long name, but we call them chromosome 15 is present, then the children or the infant in the fetus can develop nicotine dependence. And because of that, the fetus, when he or she is born, becomes a kid, then becomes a teenager, and then becomes an adult, can also develop nicotine dependence. And this explains why sometimes we can see some sort of intergenerational transmission of a given health behavior. And who is going to be aware of that? And a person's education, a person's income, a person's occupation, and the other opportunities being afforded to the person determine where the person is going to live, and determines who the person is going to mingle with on a daily basis. And the residence area of that person can also determine the nature of support system the person is going to get. And this can determine the health literacy of that mother. Depends on her education, income, and occupation, and other opportunities. And this determines where she lives, who she mingles with, and whether she's going to be aware of the implications of her smoking while pregnant on her future kids.